But let's pause, because the story isn't all one-sided. Supporters of Ouattara argue that his leadership has kept Ivory Coast from falling back into war, that his economic reforms have made the country one of West Africa's strongest economies, that his experience is needed in a dangerous time, especially when jihadist violence is spreading south from Mali and Burkina Faso. To them, his victory is not a sign of greed, but of stability, a continuity that protects the fragile peace. And in fairness, stability does matter. Ivory Coast has been through too much blood to gamble lightly with chaos. But here's the truth. Stability without renewal becomes stagnation. Peace without participation becomes silence. Africa cannot afford to keep recycling leadership while the world races ahead. The continent's future, its innovation, its creativity, its digital power, rests in the hands of the young. Yet those hands remain tied behind the walls of old power. After the elections, Africa News drew parallels between Cameroon and Ivory Coast. In both nations, the youth watched as history repeated itself. Generational tension turned into quiet frustration. Because this isn't just about presidents refusing to retire, it's about a generation being denied the right to lead. Africa's youth are now the largest generation in the continent's history. Over 400 million young Africans are under 25, and they are not just statistics. They are coders, designers, thinkers, farmers, engineers, dreamers. They want opportunity, not charity. They want voice, not lectures. They want space, not speeches. Yet their leaders seem to speak to them like children, not as the heirs of tomorrow. In the streets of Abidjan, a young Ivorian woman put it simply, "We respect Ouattara, but we want to know if our future is still ours. Respect Ouattara, but we want to know if our future is still ours." That's not rebellion. That's a plea for generational inclusion, for a peaceful transition that allows the old to mentor and the young to lead. This moment in Ivory Coast is symbolic, because what happens there echoes in every African capital, from Yaoundé to Kampala, from Kinshasa to Dakar. Will Africa's old leaders choose legacy or longevity? Will they prepare successors or protect their seats? Will they leave behind institutions or just memories? If they choose legacy, history will remember them as nation builders. If they choose longevity, history will remember them as gatekeepers who stood in the way of progress. Ivory Coast's election is not just about who won, it's about whether democracy itself can still mean something to the people. Because when citizens stop believing their votes matter, they stop believing in the system altogether. And that, more than any coup or crisis, is the slow death of democracy. Africa doesn't lack leaders, it lacks letting go. And until the old release their grip, the young will continue to look for hope elsewhere, in the desert, on the boats, or in the silence of apathy. If you believe Africa's future belongs to its youth, if you believe leadership must evolve, not just endure, then speak, share, and stand, because silence only helps the status quo. Let's keep the conversation alive. Let's keep Africa awake. You've been watching See Africa TV, bringing Africa's voice back to the center. Subscribe, follow, and join our growing community of thinkers and doers across the continent. Disclaimer, this program is based